It's a bit hypocritical and ironic that I'm making this video, considering I'm also in the process of working on a video as to why I think Star Wars should not make live-action TV shows at all, so subscribe if you want to see that when it comes out soon, but also, don't if you don't want to, it's your life. Anyway, I digress. I watched this not expecting much, and I was honestly pleasantly surprised. I was expecting cheesy child acting, and the trailers made me think we'd get more unrealistic chase sequences and fights, and the whole suburbia in Star Wars didn't feel right, but despite these hesitations, it's a really enjoyable show. The kids are all really good actors and have believable chemistry, and I love watching them go back and forth. The direction is really solid, and the story leaves me wanting more. The fight sequences have the classic villains waiting around for their turn to get beat up and stuff like that, but the stakes feel high and believable, and I feel magic. Perhaps the thing that has been most needed in Star Wars recently, which gives it a lot of points in my book. Other stuff, I don't love this washed out gray look that Star Wars TV has adopted akin to Marvel movies, as the vibrancy of the originals is a part of what makes the feeling for me. That feeling of it being shot on film. Even if it isn't shot on film, I want it to have that color and that richness and that vibrancy. I think you know what I mean. And I find the Jedi are almost too commodified, which is a weird part of newer Star Wars. Like, the main character reading his iPad to see stories of Jedi, it almost feels too close to home. And the fact that he has, an iPad and, I don't know. You know what I mean? It just feels too close to home, but even though I guess we do that with the military in real life, but also weren't the Jedi basically scrubbed from existence for a while? But this guy's also on a planet that might have something to that. I don't know. But that's for maybe later in the series. It's just another thing I feel like the TV stuff hasn't really paid attention to, where there's always new Jedi popping up that lived through Order 66. Part of what makes the original so magical to me is the fact that we don't know about those people, or we think they don't even exist at all, or I like if they just didn't exist and it was just Obi-Wan that made it through. But that's my opinion. Also, I'm still a little skeptical of the set design of the suburbs and the school and all, but in hindsight, Star Wars has also always had kind of Earth-like things like the sports bar in Episode 2 and the cantina in Episode 4 and 7. I think the weirdness comes in that the original trilogy took place in such remote, dirty places that seeing developed cities like Earth's throws me off. I know many will disagree, but I think Canto Bight feels more like Star Wars to me. It feels like a prequel thing, in a good way. It's an interesting predicament that Lucasfilm has found itself in because George Lucas left the world relatively bare in many places as far as the end of the original trilogy and what he showed us in the original trilogy. So seeing people live normal Earth-like lives feels weird. But then again, he had a 50s diner in Episode 2, so who knows, maybe we can't be precious with the look and feel. This just gives me some more Guardians of the Galaxy vibes than Star Wars sometimes. For what it's worth, I'm more into the space opera, remote, adventure, dirty, uninhabited feel of Episodes 1 through 9, but mostly 4 through 9, than these developed cities. Anyway, something feels off about the suburbs to me still, but I enjoyed the show nonetheless. I don't know what I expected. Huts, less developed homes like the original trilogy, more futuristic and cold like Coruscant. I do think the sequel movies never felt off to me personally. Anyways, I just rambled so much about the housing of the show, but it doesn't ruin the show at all really in any moment. It just makes me ask, what should a developed planet in Star Wars look like and feel like? I think what it is that a lot of the developed Star Wars locations in the movies is that they have this Roman Greek aesthetic to them that's missing when we go to the suburbs. Maybe if there's a little more of that? I don't know, I'm talking through this. And overall, they did a better job than I expected, and it didn't really bother me while viewing. It's just when I look back afterward that I'm like, does this feel like Star Wars? And that's a question I think fans have always been asking, is what should Star Wars feel like? And everyone kind of has a different idea about what it should feel like. I had a good time with this show. All that said, even though the episodes are still relatively short and make me ask why wasn't this a movie, but I'll get into that more in my other video, and that might just be a byproduct of me being a movie guy more than a TV guy. And even if to me some stuff feels out of place, it has a nice pace to it. I'm never bored, and I like just watching these characters interact and play with the world and go on their adventures. I might wait until the end of the series to binge it, as I think a lot of these shows are way too short, but I recommend watching it, and it gives me a good feeling that makes me feel like a kid again watching it. I think what they were going for, The Goonies, you've heard it a million times when people talk about this show, but it does feel like that. It's the best Star Wars show in a minute, if that says anything, and an enjoyable time, even if it doesn't have this epic cinematic mystery vibe I want out of Star Wars, though I do think it tickles that mystery fancy I want out of Star Wars, a little bit more than a lot of the previous shows, if any of the previous shows. I like that mystery aspect, which I think it's going for. I'd give it a watch and form your own opinion because I think it's worth the time. I know this is only my second video, but subscribe if you want to see more because I plan to upload pretty consistently. Thanks for watching, and go watch Skeleton Crew.